Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. Today we are going to be doing the TikTok version of the best 23 books I read in 2023. Let me explain. I have been seeing around like people saying these are the 23 best books that I've read in 2023 because it sounds good, and that's fine. I was gonna do that, but I only read like 53, 54 books at this point, and picking out 23 of them would be half of them, and I just didn't feel like choosing books that I didn't really want to talk about just to get to the 23 book count. So I saw on TikTok that people have been doing the best book of every month that they read in 2023. So that's what we're doing because I feel like 12 books is a good number for me. I can definitely pick out 12 books that I loved without having to think about it, and it doesn't feel like disingenuous. So that is what we're doing today. I'm going to be going through one book for every month of the year from January to December and choosing one to talk about that I loved. I went through my Goodreads and I wrote down every single book that I read this year, and then I highlighted my favorite. Starting off strong with January. My favorite book I read in January was The Inheritance Games. I feel like I read this so long ago, but it was so good. I credit this book for getting me back into reading, genuinely, because it's so fast-paced and the mystery element is so good, and I loved the storytelling. I loved the little mysteries throughout. I immediately went out and bought the second and third book when they came out and loved it the entire time. So if you're looking for a book that'll help you get back into reading for 2024 and you haven't read this book, definitely read it because you're gonna want to keep reading to see what happens. So yes, The Inheritance Games is our first book. In February, my favorite book that I read was Love in Other Words. This book I feel like was popular a while ago. This is the first time I read it, and I am so happy I did. I credit this book for getting me into the romance genre because honestly, my comfort genre is fantasy. It's always been fantasy. I love fantasy books, but I never really was a huge romance reader until I picked up this book. The couple in it, Elliot and Macy, if you hear that, they're doing work on our roof, so I'm sorry. And the quotes in here are beautiful. This is so sweet. Like, I feel like this is a nice feel-good book that was definitely sad at times, but I would pick it up again and still enjoy my time reading it because it was fast-paced, but I really was invested in the story. So that is my favorite book from February. And then in March, my favorite book. It's crazy to me that I read this book in March. Magnolia Parks. I have a video of a reading vlog of me reading this book, and I'm not going to talk that much about it because I've talked about this book an insane amount of times on this channel. You guys are probably sick and tired of hearing it, but this was absolutely my favorite book that I read. In March, it was my birthday month, which was just made it so much better. It changed the way that I read books. And that feels dramatic, but it's not. I am changed after reading this book. I don't read the same. I don't, because this book is like amazing. And I always compare romances to Magnolia Parks now, and quotes to Magnolia Parks. It has changed the way that I look at quotes. It's changed me. And that is my favorite book from March. And then in April, my favorite book that I read was Daisy Jones and the Six, another book that I've talked about so much on this channel, another book that I have a reading vlog on somewhere. I listened to it on the audio form and it really got me into audiobooks. This is the book that I credit for getting me into audiobooks because they had the different voice actors for each character. It was like you're listening to an interview. I loved every single one of their voices. I loved this story. I love this book. So this is my favorite book from April. In May, is anyone surprised that it's from this series? It's Daisy Hates, which is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe from 3 different characters. Well, I think 2 different characters' point of views, but it's the same timeline as Magnolia Parks. I don't talk about this one as much, I feel like, but I did really enjoy it. Everything that Jessa writes, I enjoy, I'm realizing. Getting introduced to Daisy and Julian and Christian. Daisy is like a foil to Magnolia in so many ways. Daisy and Christian's story, I love it still. Like, I don't know if I love it as much as BJ and Magnolia's relationship, but I love Daisy and Christian in this. I loved her storytelling in this. Still amazing quotes. So definitely favorite book from May. And it's beautiful also. All of her books are beautiful. That is May's book. In June, my favorite book that I read, this is hard, I was between two, but I had to choose Happy Place. I love this book so much. I loved the summer nostalgia feeling. I loved Harriet as a main character. I loved Win and Harriet's relationship. The quotes in here, also beautiful and amazing, and I definitely will be rereading this book. I wasn't like a huge Emily Henry fan, but now I want to read every single thing that she's written because I was obsessed with this book. A lot of books don't make me cry. This book made me cry. But it also made me so happy. I was like just smiling like crazy looking down at a book. Like I must have looked insane at the bookshop when I was smiling at this book. I'm definitely gonna read it again in summertime. I loved it so much. I related to Harriet as a character, and her friend group was perfect too. And then for July, Scarred by Emily McIntyre. This is the second book in the Never After series. I read the first book, I have the third book, and it's on my TBR, so hopefully we'll get to that one. But this is the second book. I feel like people don't talk about this book as much as they should. It's a dark romance book. I loved the Scarred Prince in this, and I loved Sarah B. It was like enemies to lovers, and Tristan was that classic like burn the world down for her love interest. It's called a dark royal romance, and some elements in this book also were sort of like fantasy to me, if that makes any sense. This book also had some fantasy elements even though it wasn't a fantasy book, and I love fantasy, so I loved seeing that. And I loved that it was the retelling of Lion King, or a reimagining of Lion King, and I credit this book for fully getting me into dark romance. And the quotes are also amazing. I feel like I don't talk about the quotes in this book as much. There are some good ones in here. I loved this quote so much that I actually posted it on my Instagram on like one of my stories, so let me see if I can find that. You could burn down the entire kingdom until it's nothing but charred rubble, and I would crawl over the embers with glee, so long as I could worship at your feet. If that's love, then yes, I love you. I can't feel anything but loving you. Are you kidding? In a world of people who don't see me, sometimes it feels like he's the only one that does. And the way he stares as though he's diving into my soul and seeing every part makes me feel like I could ask him for the world and he'd tear it to pieces just to fit it in my hands. Maybe if I drown myself in him, I won't suffocate from the pain. Are you kidding me? You need to read this book if you haven't read this book, because this book is amazing. August. It was actually Float, which is another book that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. It's by Kate Marchant, and she actually started off on Wattpad, and then it got published and became sort of popular in the summertime. It was just so much fun. Like, I remember I was reading this on the beach, and it just had such a summer nostalgia feeling to me that it was the perfect setting at the perfect time. I loved the friend group in this. I loved seeing the sort of self-discovery that Waverly went throughout the whole book. It's a young adult book, but it was fun. And the romance wasn't too heavy, but it was there, and it was perfect for what it was. Yes, that is Float. September. Fourth Wing. We're not surprised, are we? We're not surprised. I have another reading vlog of me reading this book, and I've also talked about this book an insane amount, just like Magnolia Parks, so I am not going to talk about it that much now, and you probably know exactly what it's about because it is everywhere, and I haven't read Iron Flame yet, but I am waiting to read it. But Fourth Wing, whenever I wasn't reading this book, I wanted to be reading this book. Whenever I couldn't read this book, I was thinking about this book. That is how amazing this book was, and how much this book consumed me for the few days that I was reading it, and even so far afterwards. Like, I still think about this book. I love it. I love every part of it, and that's big coming from a fantasy reader like me. I love fantasy. It might not have been the best fantasy I've ever read, but it was definitely up there, and it was so good. October. Another book that I feel like I talk about a lot lately, Kingdom of the Feared. This is the third book in the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. The first and second book, if you've only read those, you need to read this one because the first and second book don't even compare to this book. This book is so amazing. The lawnmower's going, sorry. Everything's happening as I'm recording, of course. The first and second book were good, but it was nothing compared to this book. Like, When I read this book, I fell so in love with Wrath. The whole storyline was beautiful and amazing and so well done in my opinion. Very, very highly recommend this series, especially this book. If you haven't given the third book a chance and only read the first or second book, definitely read the third book because they don't compare. Next is November. I chose Ignite Me. This is the third book in the Shadow Me series, and what everyone says is the best book, and I could not agree more. I mean, I haven't read past this book, but this book was amazing. I do have a vlog of me reading the rest of the series up to this book. Juliet became so much more, I guess, like confident in her powers and much more powerful, like superhero level. And then you had the love triangle. This book made me fall in love with Aaron Warner. If you hear about Aaron Warner and you don't know where he comes from, this is the series that he comes from. Aaron Warner is a great book boyfriend, and everyone says it, and I completely understand that from reading this book. That was our November favorite read. We've come to December. Although December is not over, I do have a favorite. I finished reading Long Way Home, and that will be coming out in a vlog soon. But this is the third book in the Magnolia Parks universe, the second book from Magnolia and BJ's point of view. I'm not going to talk about it because I talk about it so much in that reading vlog coming out, so you just have to look forward to that one. It just added so much more to BJ and Magnolia's relationship, and I feel like after reading this, I completely understand why they are the way they are. Again, the quotes. I tagged like every single page because it was beautiful and it makes me so excited to read the next book. So yes, Long Way Home is my favorite book from December. And those are all of my favorite books from each month of the year. Looking at this stack just makes me so happy because I truly loved all of these books so much, and it just makes me so excited to see what books I'll discover in 2024. That is gonna be it from me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.